Mornings. This morning we are at the rooftop of Scientology Church at the Wieboudstraat 112 in Amsterdam. And who's next to me?
This is Michael, founder of Ivan's Herbs.
Yeah, that's a tea.
Yeah, Ivan Chai is a herbal tea from Russia. It used to be popular in Europe, and my goal is to bring it back, make it popular again.
So how did you game up to becoming an entrepreneur?
The start of it was actually in 2017. I was working for a startup for 2 years, and I wanted to make my own. I was in Moscow. I had an apartment there, an inheritance from my father, and I knew I was going to sell it. So I knew I was going to have this huge influx of cash, and I wanted a worthwhile cause to dedicate it to. And in my time in Moscow, I discovered this herbal tea.
So you had a difficult time also in that period, but you just decided to go on and be an entrepreneur.
Yes. It was difficult. It was a crossroads. Before I even got to Moscow, I was making business plans for businesses in Nicaragua, for example. I had never even been to Nicaragua. I was really trying to look at a business to create. The start of it was rough as well, because I know I needed business partners. So I started looking for business partners in Moscow. I was even using Meetup to meet with people, talk about it. I was talking about it constantly. And that attracted some, let's say, entrepreneurs, quote unquote, but I never really found quality.
So where are you from? Tell me more about your birth and situation, where you were born, these kind of things, where you were raised.
So I was born actually in California, in Santa Monica, my dad, who actually came from Switzerland, he actually ran away from home when he was 19 years old. He took a plane, didn't tell his parents, his mom, his family, no one. And when he wrote them, he said, he wrote a telegram. He says, "When you read this, Mom, I'm very, very far away." My mom, coming from Bolivia, she was immigrating to the U.S. to look for a better life, as they did in the 1980s. That's where I started, but we lived there for only 6 years. And then we moved around every 2 years because my father was working for Lufthansa, the German airline company. And for every 2 years, we moved to Venezuela, to Miami, to Paris, to Texas, to Mexico City. We finally settled in Texas for a long time. That's where I did my high school, my college.
So you've been all around the world. Actually, you had a cool dad, actually.
Yeah. My dad was a pretty successful guy. I mean, he could speak 5 languages. He was really my role model in life.
And you as a child, how would you describe yourself?
Oh, I think I was a curious one. The first time I was actually on a plane, I was 2 years old. My dad put me on a plane from Los Angeles all the way to Zurich, all alone. And I was a curious kid. I would just talk to the people on the plane. I would go underneath the seats in the plane, and I was just always very, very vibrant, very curious because of the language as well. I mean, Switzerland's a completely different culture than in the United States, and I had to adapt. And also from moving place to place, I never had like a steady, long-lasting friendship. So I became very good at meeting people. I think that's a skill that was engendered by this childhood I had.
Yeah, communication is very important, of course, but maybe you're a polyglot? You learn a lot of languages?
Oh, polyglot is a big word. I think the requirement there is 5, but I do speak 4 pretty well. Swiss German, which I've been learning since I was 2. Spanish from my mother. Just this morning I was learning French with my fiancée. And Russian. Now I speak Russian, I think at B1 level, B2 level, because I was just there for 6 months.
Yeah, importing tea from Russia, you should speak Russian, of course. So what about this tea? Because it's an amazing thing. Tea is also a good drink.
So the herbal tea has a long history, starting back when tea was really discovered for the Russians, which was around the 1650s. It was first brought to the Russian nobility because they were the first that could actually afford the tea, the real tea from China, green tea and black tea. Being only for the nobility, still people in the lower class liked it or had somehow heard about it, and it's a bit unclear how the knowledge came over, but they began using the production methods to make tea on herbs that they collected themselves in the fields, trying to make their own tea from what grew locally. And they took this plant called fireweed. In the UK, it's better known as rosebay willow herb. And they began rolling it and fermenting it like you would a black tea. And it even tasted a bit like black tea by coincidence. They also noticed it was a positive effect on the body. We can go more details on that. But the story goes that they started mixing it with real tea. So there started this little black market in the underground of cities trying to mix tea or even sell Ivan chai, as they got the name of it, as real tea. And it even started being imported into Europe.
You really got a romance with tea, I think. But
Yeah.
there's some other love also in your life, because you were married, I think?
Yeah, I just got engaged to my polyglot wife, or fiancée at the moment. I actually met her in Moscow, just at the end of my stay.
This is a crazy story, isn't it?
Yeah, this is a crazy story, because she was living in Kazan, which is a city just 11 hours east of Moscow, and she was just in Moscow for that week, and I ran into her. Sparks were made, and we kept in contact. And she invited me back to an eco-village in Russia in April of the following year, in 2018, and that's when we kind of reconnected.
So eco-villages, are they also like vegan villages? Because of what I am is, of course, a vegan human journalist.
They're completely vegan. So the one that you took me is in a town called Antonovka, near the city of Kazan. They're completely vegan. No drugs, no alcohol, of course, and very, very different mindset. They're very attentive to the way they speak. Actually, they would say, for example, if you would say, "My elbow is hurting," they'd say, "Oh no, we don't say that. We say, I'm feeling my elbow." Or if you say you're sick, they would say, "No, you're getting better." So this, we call it NLP, or programming of your brain to actually get the result.
Neuro-linguistic programming.
Exactly. They're really attentive to this, and they're very creative people too. They make songs at breakfast. They make poems to each other almost on a daily basis. It's really a different world there.
So it's all about knowledge. It's all about sharing, of course, in life. And if you see it yourself in the future, what is your goal for the next few years?
My goal is solely to revive Ivan chai, is to bring Ivan chai back to its popularity because of its health benefits. I'll take that as a segue right into the health benefits, because it's forgotten, and I think what the world needs a bit more of is to slow down. I think everything is becoming a trend. There's slow food. Fast food is known to be something you only do when you really need it. Ivan chai is a calmative.
We both need to slow down. If you look around now, you see the sun. We're at the roof at Scientology Church in Amsterdam. Sure. That's an amazing thing. We met each other at Scientology Church, of course. That was our first speak about what is this in life and what can we do with it, but also about your entrepreneurship, of course. So you have to see this in perspective now. Now we're having a big, wonderful view. And the sun is shining. And if you look around, you see whole Amsterdam. You even can see Rijksmuseum. And you can see the Rij there, and there's an amazing view of Amsterdam here, because we're near Amstel, the Amstel station. So this is the best location ever, I think, to have the first podcast together.
Absolutely. It's my first time here too, and I'm actually living outside of Amsterdam a bit at the Bad Hoeverdorp. So I need to learn a little more about Amsterdam myself. So I'm glad that I can see the city a bit.
What time did you came in Amsterdam? What was the year?
So I actually visited my co-founder in around April-May of 2018. And I spent 1 month here. That was the longest time I spent in Amsterdam, living at his place. And we kind of were trying out the herbal tea, introducing it to businesses. And I was just getting a feel for the city, getting a feel for how the herbal tea or even just tea business works, kind of figure out what doesn't work and what does, because we presented it to companies and to businesses, restaurants, cafes, and you kind of get what they're used to, and there's some resistance to taking a new product, of course.
And in Amsterdam, you meet a lot of people. A lot of expats live in this city. There's a big tourism. The Netherlands really loved Amsterdam because it's the main capital city, of course. And a lot of people from the world know Amsterdam. But Scientology Church has focused on Amsterdam because it's so central, also for Europe. Like The Hague is near, and a lot of political people come to the Netherlands.
Yeah, that's our focus too, because we've learned that people in Amsterdam are quite open. they kind of want novelty. They want the up and up, and the upcoming and trending products and services and knowledge in that sense.
So the main goal for you, of course, is to focus on tea. What is the knowledge in tea, if you say, like, some revelation you got in the last few years? Because in the first time you just drink your tea and then you say, hey, I like tea. And suddenly you say, hey, there's a different tea. There's the English blend and then there's the Indians. And
sorry, I didn't quite understand the question.
what revelation did you get in these few years, of course? Like, what changed in your mind? Like, how it became something special in your mind?
Right. The revelation I got was, for me personally, that caffeine is powerful. And I think caffeine is abused. And I think we and I could speak really about myself, we have a hard time calming down. Ivan Chai helps me with that. I think other people, and maybe even myself in the past, would use alcohol, for example, in the evenings after a long day of stress at work to kind of cool the engines. It's like you have to quench it, you know. And to me, that's not a sustainable approach. That's not how we live long. It's not how we live more consciously, because we're a little too driven. We're a little too hungry, and not taking things as they come.
We're talking about climate crisis nowadays. We're talking about the energies that floating around because there's so much Wi-Fi and all these materialistic things. The digitalization world, people don't even look at their people around them, but they look at their screens because they have more people on their screens than people around them, they say.
That is so true. That is so true. I remember my mom saying years ago, because she's been working at the airport, they're like, it used to be fun to work at the airport lounge, but now people are always looking down at their screens. It's true, and that's why actually I dedicate Saturday to the Sabbath. To me, every Saturday I don't open the computer. I learned French, and we fast actually every Saturday.
Is this also a day that you put your phone off and just really go offline?
Almost. I had to check to make sure I met correctly with you, but as minimal as possible. Only what's really, really necessary. We went to the park. We had to nap a lot because we were fasting, not eating at all. And that's just my reset day. And that lets me kind of get perspective. That gives me time to reflect. So, okay, how do I want to approach the next 6 days?
What makes you feel when you fast? Because it's like one day or...
Yeah, we do 24 hours. So from dinner on Friday, to dinner on Saturday. You feel tired. you get this shock feeling. And when it comes to dinner time, you have to control yourself to not overeat. I think it's really important. You can easily fall into that, and you might even do your body a bit of... I've read that you can do yourself damage, but you'll feel really sleepy if you eat too much. And that's not the point.
Yeah, we're at Scientology in Amsterdam on the rooftop. That's an amazing thing. But also the sun is shining. And then you get a lot of energy from the sun because there's amazing energy in the sun. But people don't understand it when they all are in their offices and they're all at their works and the computers. And they don't see the sunlight at all.
Absolutely. We have to work more outside. Natural vitamin D. If you don't have it, I resort to my milk. That's right. I get my vitamin D.
I say, why not soya milk? Because you're talking about milk now, and as a vegan, I always see the perspective of the animals also, of course.
I haven't put much thought into that. Personally, I'm getting the milk from the calcium and vitamin D. What would be an argument for the soya?
Well, there's soya milk, but there's also cocoa milk, of course, and there's oat milk and all these things. And a lot of them are having the same issue with enough calcium in it. So for cocoa milk there's a bit of calcium in it, of course, right. And that could be enough for you to understand that you don't need it from the cow, you don't need it from an animal.
Okay, so for the animal purpose, because yes, actually in the second eco village I was in Siberia, I learned a lot about how cows work, and that's where I learned, they're taking the milk from the calf. They kill the calf and then they take the milk. So
yeah, it's the reason that cows give more milk when the calf is gone, and they put them on the machines, and then they give like 2 or 3 times more than normally. But that's actually a crazy thing to know. Then
exactly. I learned that. These people actually did not use a machine. They milked it by hand. So every day, the cow's making 25 liters of milk daily.
Here in the Netherlands, they even can make 40 liters. That's crazy.
Oh, wow. Because from the machines. That's the effect of that. Okay.
Twice a day they milk the cow, so twice a day, it's like 20 liters in the morning and 20 liters in the afternoon.
Yeah, I guess they're stimulated, and because they feel dry, it fills up.
Of course, the food is also something, because they give some food like from the soya, also the soya beans, and that is a lot of soya food that we can use all ourselves. So like 30 times more soya food is used just to create that meat and to create the milk, as we can eat it ourselves.
I get you, yeah, and there's like an efficiency chain going on. Instead of us eating the soya, we give it to them, and then only a percentage of that, if I had to say a number, it'd be 10%, then gets converted to what we then ingest. So
we're talking about awareness, about food. In Scientology, they say you don't need food to have a spiritual sense of growing, because the Holy Ghost or the spirituality in you, that is actually always growing, and it's like the sunlight, it's always there, it's life. Everything that comes from life will grow in life. I think that's also a logic thing in veganism. If you see veganism, we keep what is alive, of course, but plant power is also the basic thing as food, because we see that as food. And nowadays you also see it in clothing. A lot of more clothing is made by plant-based products.
Yeah, I get you. And actually coming back to that fasting, to reevaluate it, you learn to breathe much more. You learn to really be happy for what you have. Going back to slowing down, if you will. And you just have to find the happiness within you, because that's actually where it is anyway. If you look for it externally, well, it's always fleeting.
So this is a good question. What makes you most happy, if you see it in yourself, in your life, the things that make you happy?
I have to say is it's me pursuing what's meaningful, not what's convenient or what's quick.
So what's really meaningful in the nowadays time of life?
For the world, that's a big question. I'm starting very nuclear with my fiancée.
Yeah, but also for you personally, what's for you meaningful? Of course.
For me, meaningful is my health, actually. Because for the time leading up to Moscow, my health was not in a good state. Yeah. Ivan Chai kind of showed me that, gave me a way, gave me a meaning to bring that to other people. And now I'm really focused about my health. The fasting, that's something I've just been doing this year.
You must have been exhausted and broken, of course, losing your father, of course, on that time of your life. Because how old were you?
I was only 25. He was only 53, so it came quite as a shock to everyone in my family. And I was broken. I was certainly depressed the first half year after that. I was living with my mom in Texas and dealing with family matters there. The house that we had there, we had to downsize to a smaller house. And I made the brave decision, actually, to say, Mom, I'm going to trust you to sell this big house that we could only afford when he was alive. And I'm going to go back to school in Switzerland, because I had quit my program when he had died suddenly. And it was hard. That was really hard for her. And that was even hard for me, but I made that jump. And that's what kind of led me on this journey of the school, led me to the entrepreneurial scene, and that's what ultimately led me to be ready to go back to Moscow and sell the apartment.
So how's your connection with your mom?
It's good. It's good. I speak with her every Sunday, and my sister. She's lovely. I mean, she's strong. I'm so proud of her.
And you also have quality time, of course, family time, these kind of things. Sunday is a good day, of course.
Well, it's quality time on Skype, because she's still in Texas. That's as quality as it can be, but I'm promising with her that I go back for Christmas.
Yeah, once a year would be great, of course, if you at least be once a year together, but it's a big distance, I think.
It is. I was there at the beginning of 2018. So yes, it's been a while, but we took one month trip to Bolivia together, where she's from.
Did you see the cocoa beans?
The cocoa beans, like the ones for chocolate. I actually didn't, but I did try cacao. No, okay, I did. You're right, because it doesn't look exactly what you think. Because you think chocolate and you think like some dark chocolate bean, but it comes in this very colorful red, yellow pod.
It's a fruit, and then you see the fruit, and you see inside the white pulp, the pulp in it.
Yeah, the white pulp, and I was actually eating these.
service lines here? Yeah, we're doing a podcast now, so that's agreed with the Pim also. So.
Okay, fine. I didn't know that because I don't know you.
Yeah.
No problem.
So we keep going with the episode. We're at Scientology Church at the roof. Some people just asked about our podcast, of course, but this is the first episode, so it's quite easy to know that there's some misunderstanding with the whole crew, because not the whole crew does know that we're here on the roof in a beautiful sunshine. We were talking about, of course, some chocolate. I've been to the Cacao today. It's still the last day, but I've been there for 4 days. There are a lot of entrepreneurs in the world making chocolate drinks. Actually, cacao juice is something also. And there's so much to do in this. This is a big industry also.
Right. No, I really liked it when I tried it because of its effects. It's much more subtle than coffee. It's the theobromine. That's the chemical name inside the cacao. And I just wasn't really thinking about it. I just ate the whole pod practically.
You always have to think what you eat. It's the same as in veganism. Just think what you put in your mouth. Otherwise, you have the after effect. And you will feel guilty, or you will feel ashamed, or you will also get the too much boost. Because with cacao, you can get so much energy that you cannot sleep if you just take 3 of these beans.
Yes, it was powerful. I felt this boost, and I didn't know why I was so happy, why I was so energetic in the park. And I was with my mom and her sisters, and they were not on the same level. They only tried one. And then I realized, I'm eating cacao beans, and that has this stimulant.
But it's plant-based, so that's good. That's vegan, what we say. But the most important thing is, of course, it's not like a medicine. It's not like you put some drug inside yourself and you just keep on using the drug because the doctor just told you have pain, just take the drug. And then it really makes you happy. It really gives you a good sense of feeling again.
Absolutely. Yeah, and it's come completely natural. Other things I've actually tried in Bolivia, which wouldn't say I can recommend them, but they're worth trying for those who are interested, is the cacao leaf, the coca leaf, which is the basis for making cocaine. But there it's not really viewed as that.
Yeah, but we know from this that that's really a drug, cocaine, of course, and we know also that even factories like Coca-Cola used to have it in the product. I don't know if it's still in it, of course, but we know that this is really a drug that really makes you addicted, also.
Yeah, cocaine has a high addiction, but just to say, in their culture, though, in Bolivia, they don't really view it as a drug when someone is chewing the leaves, because it's very dilute. It's like it takes 1,000 leaves to make, 1,000 kilos of leaves to make one kilo of cocaine. So
of course, but there are also aboriginals or Indians or locals. How do you call them? People who live there and they eat the leaf all day long.
Yes.
And people around them know that that's the guy who always eats the leaves, of course, because they know that he's just addicted to the leaves.
There is that because it takes away hunger, and if they have nothing to eat, then they know that's a very cheap way to at least keep down their feeling of hunger. And
there's a perspective also on food, because when we look at spiritual food, then we should talk about probably also our location and the Scientology perspective on this. How do you see this? Because you came in contact with Scientology somehow.
To be honest, I went looking for a meetup to meet entrepreneurs, and the name of the meetup was Brunch and Knowledge. So I said, okay, people want to talk about some deep, meaningful topics, and that's how I met you.
Yeah, that's the meetups in Amsterdam. You have meetup.com, of course. There's an app, and you can just search on it, and then you find Scientology coffee meetup and these kind of things also. Have you been in reach out with Scientology somewhere else in the world? Because Scientology is quite big, of course.
Before, I never really had an encounter. Just once when I was in college in Texas, and I was a little scared then.
Texas is scary, I think.
Yeah.
You see cowboys in the movies.
That might have been it. But it was the information that was kind of circulating at that time about Scientology being...
No one was holding a gun on your face.
No one was holding a gun. Though in Texas, lots of people have those. But it was the information that was circulating about Scientology being a tax evasion method, that is kind of a pseudo-religion, and that there's aliens. And I still went into a Scientology building. And it was a bit strange. I mean, just the amount, there weren't many people there. I was like, what's going on here? And the first thing she offered me was a conductivity test. And there's a picture on the wall of like someone with their feet in some salt water and holding these metal rods. At that time, I was young. I was about 21 years old. And I said, I don't know what this is. I don't know what I would need this for. And I guess out of fear, I just went away.
What age are you now?
Now I'm 30.
Yeah, and we're in Amsterdam in the sunshine on the rooftop. There's something about this location. Can you describe it when you see it? You've been here now for the second time. We've had the lunch here.
Yeah, they definitely have a lot of money because it's a good location. And I think what they do from the introduction video that they gave me last week was they use science to really solve people's problems. There's even a little bit of neuro-linguistic programming, I think, in there too, about using the old knowledge that we have. And they really have a modern institute to kind of ingrain that into people to really make a positive change in their life.
I've been here a little bit more because I just come often as a journalist and approach already to Scientology as reading the book. I bought the book even about Dianetics. So if you know about Dianetics already, you know that you can lose a lot of trauma and you can lose a lot of your past lives, senses, abilities and these kind of things that are making it hard for you to just become a successful person and become the person you want to be, or actually you are purpose to be, because everyone has sort of a purpose in life and you can really feel that. Looking at the location, that's wonderful because now on the rooftop you really have nice tables and chairs and the sun is shining. That's good. But when you go up with the elevator, you just have to see the other stages, of course. But downstairs, if you have the lunchroom, it's also a church. It's like a church room, and you have like, of course, the screen. And with the screen, they use it with the presentations. But there's a program, for instance, like human aid or humanitarian, and like the UN also does with human rights. And they spread it out with flyers around the city. And we've been to Bijlmer, actually, and we talked about drugs. So to prevent that people really are getting addicted, we show the flyers and then we say, hey, Scientology also tries to help spread around the knowledge about drugs, of course. How do you think about this?
Absolutely, absolutely. I think knowledge is pretty much the first thing you need to make a change in your habits. If you have knowledge-based decisions, you make better decisions, and sometimes you need knowledge to break a habit. If there's an institution such as Scientology that can help you with that, to give you a structure for that, structured information that changes a negative habit, I'm for that.
I always ask for question: what is your biggest wish? What is your biggest fear? What do you enjoy most in life, and what do you think is difficult, or what do you think you should change in life or in the world? And let's start with your biggest wish.
I was about to say, let's not ask all those at once. My biggest wish is that we all learn to stay healthy naturally. That we get away from... there's a time when, let's call it official medicine has its place and surgeries are needed. But they say an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. And that sentence alone says it to me all. And if we can do that naturally, we found a small paradise on Earth.
So your biggest fear comes out to the things also might prevent the things you want to do. But the biggest fear in life for you, if you can talk about that?
My biggest fear would have to be getting to the end of life and not being happy with who I became. But that's not going to happen because I pursue what's meaningful. As long as I every day decide in the morning what I did that was meaningful. I live day by day anyway. You almost live your whole life in a day. If I can go to sleep knowing that what I did was meaningful, I've conquered the fear.
Yeah, you keep planning, of course, a little bit ahead, but most of the time you just are in the day, in the moment, and that's very joyful. Then we come to the third question, of course. What is the thing you really like or really love most and really enjoy?
Ooh, what I really, really, really enjoy.
And don't say sex, drugs, and rock and roll.
Oh, okay, I won't say that. I've been so strict with myself, kind of with this startup. I think I really enjoy building businesses. I'm helping my fiance doing that, helping with websites, thinking about business models. I just love doing that. I'm always trying to talk about it. And she's like, Mike, today we don't talk about business, but it always kind of comes back up into the conversation. I just love building businesses.
Does that mean growing in business, and does that mean actually you also want to create something very big like an empire or these kind of things, that you see it like that?
It can be something small, but it has to run. It has to be its own flywheel, that it spins by itself and it has momentum. And of course, the momentum is in a positive direction, not that we're making a negative change in the world.
So this is a wonderful thing. We already talked for half an hour now. So that's an amazing thing to reach out for the first podcast. But the last question is also then, what do you think should change in life, should change in the world? What do you think you can impact on the world in your life now? So you see a lot of things change. You see a lot of things happening, but like climate crisis, of course. We talked about slavery in the world, of course. There's so many things happening, but what do you think?
What I would like to change in the world? That we're kinder to each other, because that's kind of where it starts. By being kinder to yourself, you can spread that one step further and start with those ones actually very close to you, not half across the world, not necessarily your digital customers or your digital friends. Starts with a loving kindness. When you harvest that and cultivate that on a very personal level, that does change the world.
Well, that's an amazing thing. Thank you very much.
The podcast you just heard was made using Anchor. Ever thought about making your own podcast? Anchor makes it really easy for anyone to get started. It's a one-stop shop for recording, hosting, and distributing podcasts. Best of all, it's 100% free. Sign up now at anchor.fm/new. That's anchor.fm/new to get started.